Hi everyone. Hope you're having a good day. Welcome to Free Movement Sewing. And if you're here to learn all about sewing, okay, you've come to the right place. So today we're going to talk about notches and their important uses. And of course, you know what we mean by notches. You don't see here yet, but it's actually little snips that we have to do in different apparels, especially if you're doing any curves like you can see over here. All right, and that will actually help you to create very beautiful curves so that everything is nice and neat. Okay, so for this particular one, Marina actually created a bodice. Okay, this is for her tutu, and we have actually added piping. So if you see, the piping that we use is actually pretty thick. It's a circular piping, but it came out looking really good. And the main thing is the piping actually does help to form that shape and to really in a way create a little bit more shape for the bodice. Okay, but that's not gonna be the main thing that we're gonna talk about today. All right, the main thing is we're gonna talk about the notches. All right, but what Marina is doing right now is actually just snipping away all of the excess fabric and also all of the excess piping. Now this is exactly what you want to do it before you actually cut the notches, regardless of what you're sewing. Okay, if your seam allowances are a lot or it's not neat, you want to make sure that it's nice and neat first. Okay, you can see on one side it's all it's more of the serged edge, right? And then on the other side is the right side. The right side you can actually see that's how the finish looks gonna be, but we're gonna fold over the lining piece. Okay, so go ahead to always remember to trim away any excess pieces, or if you've added any pipings or anything else in your apparels. Okay, you must remember to trim it neat first. This makes flipping over the lining a lot nicer, all right, especially if you have a lot of curves. And if you see for this particular one, there's a little sweetheart going on. Okay, the sweetheart is actually that little deep V that's going on around the bust area. Okay, so especially if you have that, even more so, you need to make sure that everything is nice and neat. So Marina's having a hard time because the piping used here is actually stiffer, but it actually makes it look really good. So yeah, quite happy with that. All right, so okay, here you can actually see the notches being done. Okay, so these are notches, meaning that in this case we've actually created a V instead of just snipping like one slice by slice, if you get what I mean. Okay, so if you see, it's actually an inverted V for the bottom. Okay, and the top is just a V shape. Why we do that is because we want to create the enough space for all of the fabrics and stuff to actually kind of curve in, you know, when we flip it around with the lining. Okay, so that's why there's all of these going on. All right, the number of notches is actually very dependent on what you're sewing. But to me, the main thing is if you do it every inch or every half an inch, that would be great. All right, but the main thing is you mainly need to do it where there are more of the curves. Okay, especially where there are the side seams and any parts, you know, where there's the thicker fabric. Sometimes when you don't cut a notch there, you know, it doesn't lay as flat as you would have liked it to be. Okay, so that's the main thing. And yeah, you can see over here, okay, notches are all being cut. All right, and what you want to do after that is to flip inside out the lining. Okay, so you'll realize, okay, if you try flipping your lining inside out, okay, to the right side up without cutting the notches, you will never be able to get a nice smooth curve, or you would never be able to get the like really neat kind of curve that you actually intended it to be. All right, because the notches actually helps them to do so, and that's why they are so crucial and so important. And sometimes when you don't cut enough notches, you realize that, you know, you have to go in and do that more. So you can see Marina here going back in, cutting more, and that's perfectly fine. Okay, if you need to actually flip it back in and redo the notches, or re-add a couple of notches, please go ahead and make sure to do that. But the main thing is, if you're doing a sweetheart like this one over here, you can see right at the sweetheart there's a very deep notch, okay? And that's very important in order to create that very clean sweetheart look, okay? So notches wise, I would always say definitely try start from the center, okay? Especially if you're doing a sweetheart, and then go along all the other edges. If there are any straight lines, technically you don't really need any notches, but I always say it's always good to have a couple, okay, here and there if you're doing a straight line, right? Because sometimes when you're stitching and if it doesn't come out very straight or flat, you know, you really want to make sure that the notches actually help you and you don't have to think about it, okay? So once you've corrected it, you know, kind of go back in, cut a couple more notches and flip it back out. You'll definitely need to go ahead to check to make sure that the curves are all laying nice and flat, okay, before we do any top stitching. So you can see over here, the sweetheart is actually coming out looking really good, okay? So just go ahead to check that all of the seams, or rather all of the sides of the top or bottom or whatever that you're making, okay, can actually lay nice and flat before you go ahead to do any top stitching. Alright, so you can see the bottom is actually a lower V, okay, and so what the notches actually help to do is it actually helps to create all of that look as well, okay, so it's really important. Alright, so I hope that you found this useful. If you have any questions, drop it down in the comments below, but if not, don't forget to like and subscribe because it means so much to us, and hopefully you found something useful. If you have any questions or if you have any topics that you'll like for us to make, okay, let us know as well. But we're more than happy to welcome you to the Free Movement Sewing community and family, and definitely see you soon. We have weekly videos. Take care, stay safe, bye.